Side 2 begins with Babaji. Named after the Mahavatar Babaji, a mysterious yogi from India whom Roger Hodgins considered a messiah-esque figure to him. The word itself, Babaji, is an honorific in India that often means father, particularly a priest, and with high respect. So between this and Barbara O'Reilly by The Who, My Sweet Lord by George Harrison, and pretty much whatever Beatles song I could think of from Revolver onwards, a lot of our British bands were seemingly fascinated with Indian religions and monks. In fact, this song wouldn't seem all that out of place even if Harrison did it. And like with the previous track, Downstream, this too starts off with a simple piano melody with someone singing over it, this time being Hodgson, of course, about feeling the presence of this Lord of Dreams, being guided by him to stay in tune. Then a minute in, the music soon picks up as Bob Siebenberg's drums, among a few other instruments, enter the scene. As Hodgson sings some more about Babaji, asking if he'll ever come to him and help face the music. To which I say, Jeff Lynne and ELO can help him face the music. Just that he needs to be in an electric chair while wearing some headphones. We then get another decent saxophone solo from John Hellaway, a bit shorter and subdued compared to the last time around. Hodgson goes on about just rambling about how much of a Babaji fanboy he is, how awesome Babaji is, so on and so forth. I wouldn't be surprised if he made like a Tumblr page or forum dedicated to this Babaji fellow. And while the titular track had a bit of a spiritual undertone to it, this one, on the other hand, has a bit of a spiritual overtone to it. And some of the other members weren't as enthusiastic about it like Roger was, with keyboardist Rick Davis saying that he preferred to be anonymous than be religious about it. And Hellaway saying that whenever Roger wrote or sang about Babaji or Jesus or anything like that, he'd wish that they would sing about something else. And as much as I enjoy the song regardless, I can understand their sentiment. I myself will admit to not being as much as explicitly a religious person, as open as I may be to most faiths and religions. After that is From Now On, the third of the three songs here written by Rick Davies, and in some way a culmination of those tracks, musically and lyrically. Also beginning with a jazzy piano that seems a bit bright and vibrant, it soon tones down a bit slightly as Davies starts singing about Monday coming around again and how he's in the same old place and with all the same old faces watching him. Seems that he agrees with Garfield on hating Mondays and all, and that he really needs to report on those same old faces for potentially stalking him. He's also stuck having to work in this dull routine of a mundane job, and eventually he'd slowly drift away into this fantasy world that would come to him. Very similar to Jeff Lynne's Walter Mitty-esque character from the ELO El Dorado album. Man, that's twice in a row I've referenced ELO within the same video. And like with Loverboy, this too is about fantasizing and living in this idealized life full of romance and riches. However, while that Loverboy seemed completely deep and delusional into his dreams, here our character is, in some way, aware of it all being a daydream full of his hopes, wishes, and dreams. And partway through the song, we get another saxophone solo, this time sounding even more mellow and calmer, so showing the gradual developing and devolving of the setting of the three Rick Davies penned pieces. And after a brief reprise of the opening piano melody, Davies repeats the line of, "Guess I'll always have to be living in a fantasy," that's the way it's got to be from now on. For the rest of the song, fully accepting the mundaneness of reality, as well as the futility of his dreams. And over the course of this coda and climax, the Hellaway's saxophone plays along with it, as well as these backing harmonic vocals sounding like very much like a gospel choir. And before it all fades off, leaving us with a note of both hope and uncertainty. And honestly, I think it's endings to songs like this where I think the use of a fade out really works best, where it's meant to be ambiguous and leads us to use our imaginations and figure it out for ourselves. And so our album ends with Fool's Overture. We begin with the shortest song here, and we end with the longest, at mere 8 or 9 minutes away from reaching 11 minutes. Another thing to note is that while this is called an overture, which often means the beginning of and introduction to a piece of music, be it a play, an opera, music, etc., this is placed at the very end of the track list. Maybe it's called that because whoever put it there and decided to do so was indeed a fool. Anyways, written again by Roger Hodgson, this yet again begins with some piano. You noticing a pattern here? However, it then delves into something different, to say the least. We soon hear sounds of a cheering crowd, as well as some brief faint fanfare and the ringing of clock tower bells, and even snippets of the famous "We shall defend our island" speech from Winston Churchill. All this together procreating this sense of British patriotism. And after some epic bits of synth, sax, and rocking jam sessions, Roger finally sings at the halfway point about history, recalling how great a fool can be, how pride comes before a fall, and all that. In particular, when a man had been called a fool, for whatever reason, stripped of his pride, and forever laughed at by everyone, until the day he died. And soon after a few verses, the music takes over again, especially the saxophone once again, before things seem to calm down a bit as we get a long sound of blowing wind. Don't prog bands love to use that kind of sound? Where we faintly hear a choir singing a bit of the Jerusalem poem, "Did those feet in ancient time," and even a sample of the famous Dreamer song. Neat and clever little callback. And soon we come to what could be considered the climax of this overture, if not the album as a whole, where Roger asks if we can hear what he's saying, which of course we can, and see the parts he's playing, referencing, among a few other things, the Queen, the Joker, Spider-Man, the Blue Meanings, these figures and icons of obscure niche pop culture. And as the synths play out their final chords, we end out with what sounds like an orchestra setting up their instruments and the tapping of a conductor's baton. Something you usually hear at the very start of a musical performance, but of course is put at the very, very end. Playing into the whole being an overture, but ironically and foolishly used as the opposite of what it's meant to be and do. Roger also admitted that the lyrics in this are essentially meaningless, and that, and I again quote, he likes being vague and yet saying enough to set people's imaginations running riot, unquote. To which, of course, I'm very sure he succeeded. And that the overture apparently originated from 3 different pieces of music he was working on before he decided to just combine and mix them together. And honestly, they come together very well here to form this extravagant and very out there suite and a grandiose finale. And with all that said and done, this album is really good. still showing the progressive rock sides of Supertramp, while still also sounding accessible enough to mainstream listeners, very much with Crime of the Century, Crisis What Crisis, and Breakfast in America. The vocals from both Roger and Rick are very poignant, and the saxophone solos are just the jazzy cherries at the very top of this prog pop rock record. All in all, I recommend this one. You'd enjoy it even in the quietest of your moments. Next time, we celebrate May Day with something a bit more human. Indeed, it's the comeback album from Gorillaz back at 2017, Humans. Oh, by the way, another thing I forgot to mention about this cover, you see this little note sheet here that's very clearly like photoshopped in here and it's probably not obviously there on the set. Even though it says Fool's Overture, the actual music notation itself isn't actually from the overture itself. It's actually the Star Spangled Banner. So another case of it being a foolish, in that it's not even the right music. Then again, considering the next album they would make after it wouldn't be the only message they make on America,